Hello, viewers. My name is Ovayo Melanie from Dale College High School in King Williamstown. I'm the head of Department of the Commercial Subjects, and welcome to the ECDOE Broadcast Studio. Today's lesson is about the overview of Paper 1, which I would like us to discuss further for you to understand it better when you are sitting for your examination. The first topic that I would like us to look at is the marks of the paper. How many marks does paper 1 cover? Paper 1 covers 150 marks of the subject, and the duration of the paper is 2 hours. Now let's look at the main topics. We have 2 main topics for paper 1, which is business environments and business operations. Now, under business operations, we have 3 subtopics. The first one being legislation, then it's business strategies, then the last one is business sectors and their environments. Moving to business operations. Business operations has 2 subtopics, which is the human resource function and quality of performance. Now let's look at the structure of the paper. The paper has 3 sections, section A, B, and C. Section A is a compulsory question. It has 3 sub-questions. The first one, section A, is question 1, which has 3 sub-questions, question 1.1.1, 1.1.2, and 1.1.3. The total mark for section A is 30 marks, and it covers the 2 main topics, which is business environments and business operations. This question comprises of the multiple choice questions, and it's out of 30 marks, as I mentioned earlier. Now, let's move and look at question 1.1.1. Question 1.1.1 is a question where learners has to choose between 4 provided questions, and the learner has to choose only 1 correct answer from the options provided. Do not overwrite. If you choose D, write D. If you choose A, write A. And if you feel that A is incorrect, scratch it off and write the correct answer. Also, do not give 2 options. You cannot write B or D. The instruction is clear in that question. It says, choose only the correct answer. That means you write D if the correct answer is D, or B if the correct answer. You cannot write both, because that means you do not know the answer. Lastly, write only the letter next to the question. Do not rewrite all the statements. Go back to the instruction, and the instruction is clear. Choose the correct answer. Write only the letter with the correct answer. Let's move to question 1.1.2. This one is a question where learners are provided with statements, and you have to use words that are provided in the text box for you to complete the statements provided. Let's look, for example, if the question is, Amanda is entitled to dash dash as a compulsory benefit. Go back to the text box for you to choose the correct answer. If, for example, on the list of words provided, there is unemployment insurance, it means the correct answer is unemployment insurance. Please guard against writing unemployment only, because you will not be allocated marks for that. The last question in section A is 1.1.3. With this one, you have to match the statements provided in column A with the descriptions in column B. And you have to choose only the letter with the correct answer and write it next to the question number. Moving to section B. Section B has 3 questions. And from the 3 questions, you are required to choose any 2 of the questions. And in this section, we have short questions where learners are required to write full sentences in order for them to get full marks, depending on the nature of the question, of course. Also in this question, there are also scenario-based questions where learners are required to quote by giving full sentences from the scenario. And when you quote, write the whole sentence with the correct quotation that is matching with the question. Let's move to the 3 questions that are in section B. The first one is question B, question 2, and question 2 covers business environments out of 40 marks. Question 3 covers business operations, also 40 marks. And the last question in this section is a miscellaneous question because it covers both topics, business environments and business operations. Both questions of 20 marks each for us to get 40 in this section. So you have to choose 2 questions, and those 2 questions are 40 marks each, which will give you 80 marks for section B. Now let's look at errors that learners always make in this section, or misconceptions that are there in interpreting this question. Do not provide vague or incomplete responses in this question. Be clear. Also, the inability to identify concepts. And if you fail to identify concepts correctly, it means the follow-up question will also be incorrect. Because if question 2.1.1 is requiring you to identify a concept, and you identify that concept incorrectly, it means the follow-up question also will be incorrect. Let's look, for example, if you have to identify a concept from a given scenario, and you identify it incorrectly. Say you identify it as quality assurance instead of quality control. Then it means on the follow-up question, where you have to outline the concept, you will now be giving a description of an incorrect concept, which was incorrectly identified, which then means that you will forfeit marks for the motivation. The application now. Application of concepts is always misunderstood and confused with the meaning. If, for example, a learner is asked to give characteristics, the learner will give advantages of that concept instead of the characteristics that the question requires. Lastly, instructional and action verbs are not understood by learners, meaning that learners tend to forfeit their marks because they did not understand the verb, what they were required to do. If a learner is asked to outline, it means that learner is required to give a brief description of a concept. But if a learner doesn't understand the meaning of outlining, then the learner will get it wrong because he did not understand the verb. These are errors or misconceptions that are usually made in section B, which we need to take note of when we prepare for the exam. Our next section, which is the last for paper 1, is section C. And section C covers essay type questions. This section provides 2 questions, and learners are required to choose only 1 question in this essay. Question 5 is an essay on business environments, and question 6 is an essay on business environments. And both essays are 40 marks each, which gives us a total mark of 40 marks for section C. Now let's look at the structure of the essay. The essay has 3 sections. It has the introduction, the body, which are the subtopics that are covered in the question paper. Then it's the conclusion. Now, let's look at how to write the introduction. The introduction must have 2 facts. And the 2 facts are 1 mark each. And you write your facts in point form. In the introduction, make sure that your introduction is linked to the 4 bullets that are asked in the question. Please guard against repeating the statements or taking the preamble from the question paper and using it as your introduction. You will not be allocated marks for that. And you must not also use that preamble for the conclusion, because that is repeating what is in the question paper. Learners must not give definitions in the introduction and also in the conclusion. You are not required to write the definitions in the introduction and in the conclusion. Guard against tampering with the body of the essay, because should you answer what is asked in the body, in the introduction, you will forfeit marks because you are now tampering with the body of the essay. Use the facts. The use of facts is only allowed if learners tweak the statements. When you tweak the statement, it means you change it slightly and you don't write it as it is in your notes. You interpret it in your own words so that it has the same meaning even though it is not written in the same manner. Now let's go to the content of the essay, which is now the body of the essay, the 4 bullets that are covered in the question paper, which are now our subtopics, which we use for the 4 headings that we must have in the essay. Your essay must have an analysis, which is now the interpretation of the essay. If you have all 4 bullets, all 4 paragraphs that are covered in the question, it means now you are able to analyze and interpret the essay. You must break down the question into headings and subheadings to show that you understand what is required of you or what is being asked. Remember to write your facts in full sentences to get full marks. Synthesis. Synthesis goes with relevance. All your facts must be based on the questions that are being asked in order for you to be relevant. Then we move to the originality. There must be relevance between 1 or 2 examples in any 2 subtopics, and not 2 examples in 1 paragraph. Focus on the content, and your 2 examples must focus on the 4 bullets, not in 1 paragraph. The example must not be older than 2 years, and it must be based on recent events, developments, or current trends. Now, when we break down the marks for the essay, the facts relate to the body, which is now the content of your essay. That goes to facts. And the facts are out of 32 marks. Going back to your analysis now. Analysis means that the learner has written about all 4 paragraphs that are asked in the question paper. Then that learner qualifies for the first A of analysis. Then when we have finished marking the essay, we check if the learner has acquired more than 50% of the content, meaning that the learner has 16 marks. Then the learner qualifies for the second A to get 2 marks. Going back to synthesis, remember we said synthesis goes with relevance. How relevant is the learner? The question paper has given you 4 bullets. And from the 4 bullets, you need to write 2 paragraphs to qualify for the first A, because it means you have written 50% of the essay. Now, for you to get marks for this other S, it means all your paragraphs must be relevant. Now, for you to get the second A on synthesis, it means all this information must be relevant. Talk about what is being asked in the question paper. Be relevant. Then you get the second A for you to get 2 marks for synthesis. Now, coming to originality, remember, we said your examples should be in 1 or 2 paragraphs. You cannot write 2 examples in 1 paragraph. Your examples should be in different paragraphs, focusing on the content of the essay. Meaning that if you have, now remember, we said with originality, you must have 2 examples in 2 different paragraphs for you to get 2 full marks for originality. And your examples should not be older than 2 years and should relate to recent incidents. They must relate to current trends or developments. Then that will qualify you to get your 2 full marks for originality. Then you get the total mark of your essay out of 40 marks. Do not forget to take time to study. And also, when you get to the exam, do not panic. Do not be excited. Take a deep breath and relax. When you get to the paper, do not jump to the multiple choice question, because the multiple choice question consumes a lot of your time because you juggle between the correct and incorrect answers. Remember, in section A, there is always a distractor in that question where you tend to be confused and think it's a correct answer, yet it's incorrect, but it is placed deliberately to confuse you. It is a distractor. But if you know your story well, you will be able to choose the correct answer. So my advice is, read the question paper, listen to the instruction, understand the questions, and then it's very wise to start with either section B or C, because when you get to section B or you start with section C, by the time you move to the multiple choice question, then your mind is settled, it's toned down, and it's easy for you to choose in the multiple choice question, rather than starting with the multiple choice and spend an hour writing and scratching off. Then you run out of time. By the time you go to section A and C, you are under a lot of pressure, which makes it difficult for you to concentrate and understand the questions clearly. So it's wise for you to start with either section B or C, and then the last section of your paper should be section A, where you are able to choose the correct answer. As we prepare for the examination, practice previous question papers. Understand the verbs that are used in each, especially in section B and C. Understand the meaning of the verbs. Understand the mark allocation for each verb, because for you to be able to get marks, you need to understand what is it that is asked. What am I required to do in this question? So with that in mind, read the question paper. Understand the difference between the verbs that are used, because there are verbs that are allocated 1 mark, which are lower order questions. We also have middle order questions, those that are used in section B and C. Then we have high order questions, where you are required to advise, to suggest, to evaluate. There you need to use application of your facts, apply them to business situations. That is requiring you to think, that is requiring you to apply the information in business situations. So you need to be careful when answering the question paper. You need to relax. You need to attach meaning to the verb that is used. Concentrate on the lower order, middle order, and higher order questions, because that will guide you on how to attack a question. Remember, best and rest cannot occupy the same space. So as you prepare for the examination, make sure that you do away with more rest and focus on more work in order for you to become the best. I wish you the best. We have now come to the end of our lesson. You can leave your questions and comments, and please don't forget to leave your name and the name of the school so we give shout outs. I hope this information will help you understand the question paper better. Please share, recommend, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.